So here we go then. AI innovators. This last presentation it's been a full ride now through all these uh, different angles to perceive AI from. And so I thank those of you that have been here for the beginning series, those of you that attended one of the workshops along the way, and those of you that attended every single one of them. Awesome if you did. We'll continue the conversation well into the next semester. But this presentation is really focused on nurturing creativity and entrepreneurship specifically. It comes at the tail end of a conversation on the ethical usage, plagiarism, AI policies, and whether we should police AI or if we should be clear about usage. And this presentation mostly relies on that secondary view that we've been very clear and intentional in our syllabi and in our communications with our students about how we intend to use AI. Not to deter them from using it, but rather help them to use it well, help them to use it effectively, help them to use it, you'll see in a minute, to be creative and empower themselves in various ways. And even the assignments that we have on our end as educators to lean on something like this, is to chime back into the conversation on project-based learning and sort of what that looks like and the purposes behind it. But now you take that beyond to entrepreneurship. And I had the pleasure of working with the REC, the Rec Center at Miramar College, which is the entrepreneurial arm of the college. And Tanya, who leads it there, invited me to participate as a humanities lead. In any case, a 16-week discussion focused for 14 weeks on the question and the problem. No answers here, people. You gotta really, really look at the problem from a whole lot of different angles. So this type of creative thinking was really essential for success in that course. And if you really think about the critical thinking that you're looking for in a college classroom, the type of real skill and real world application, project-based learning, entrepreneurial thinking, these are tools that can really empower students. So here we go. I'm going to highlight some of the benefits, some of the potential challenges of integrating AI into teaching methodologies. And, so we've covered a few different ways of looking at AI. And if any questions emerge along the way that have been answered, we'll refer you back to the previous recordings. But, I think we'll end here a little earlier than usual to give more time for discussion if there are questions. Maybe if there were questions sent, more AI conversations beyond this one, and the district is as well. So here we go. Gotta go back to the original quote, right? I've included it in every presentation. For those of you that are new to this last presentation, the illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read or write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. Now, in the context simply of these presentations that I've been doing, this has held true for me. I've had to unlearn what I knew and now relearn new stuff, even from the earlier material that I presented in that very first AI Demystified. So I'll have to go back and revise a few things. But the point is, even in this, it just moves so much faster. And so it's good that we're slowing down to do PD and that we're going to really expand the conversation, because the tools, they sort of develop at a fast pace and then they peak and they slow down and then we get to catch up. And now they've sort of evolved again and now we get to catch up. And one of the cooler features that you'll see that does relate back to entrepreneurship and business is the chatbots. The chatbots have finally arrived, and not just the ones from ChatGPT, but there's competitor bots that are doing some cool stuff. So long story short is this quote holds true. We continue to have to evolve in our thinking, update our pedagogies, really just change how we frame our conversations, and maybe even how we assess is what we're starting to discover here as we really engage with this new technology that's moving at a rapid pace. So I like to begin the discussion sort of where we are today in the conversation of AI. In the last one where Josh, Ali, and I talked about AI art mostly, we didn't do a catch-up because we had this very specific cool thing to present, the AI bot that Josh made, and then the two-part presentation, but the two AI speakers who spoke about art. just kind of a cool application of art from words. So here in this one, I wanted to kind of slow down and see where's the conversation of AI today. And so we get, Common Sense Media, Gen AI Tools ratings. So Common Sense Media Group is putting out these reviews about these tools now to see which ones are the ones that have the best applicability for students in the best way that we need them to have. Here we have the actual article if you want to read it. It's linked in the presentation, so you can go ahead and do that later. If I click on this, I believe it would open a small window. Yep. And you can sort of see what the conversation is. It's about championing responsible usage of AI, which is a great thing to see. Responsible usage is essential. And then you can see over here on the right the sort of overall rating. It seems like Khanmigo is getting great ratings, and that's a tool that's used in educational classrooms K-12 because I believe it's related to Khan Academy. And so, the idea that they're already integrating AI at that level by the time they get to the middle school, to the high school, to the college. I mean, the idea is that they'll have really good experience with AI by then, and so it's a good idea for us to all right get ahead of this little wave here, and that's what we're doing in these AI in these PDs. So thank you for joining me once again. One of the other things that I just mentioned a moment ago was the chatbots, right? And so some of the things that you can create now are sampled here in this right-hand side, right? A creative writing coach. Wow, isn't that what we were sort of wanting in some of the previous presentations? We were discussing whether or not we get to the point where we have these specialized GPTs. At that point we were calling them smaller learning models, right? So there was the large ones like ChatGPT, and now there's the smaller ones, and these are the smaller ones. And why are they smaller? Well, because you're giving them limited data sets. You're not giving them the entirety of ChatGPT's database. No, you're just saying, hey, look here, and only here. And in fact, when you look here, deliver information only in this way. So you can really start to shape what the chatbot is doing. So in any case, now you have, a writing coach. I'm excited to read your work and give you feedback and improve your skills. This is something that the bot could have always done, could always do, but it took time to go into ChatGPT, actually type in the right prompt commands. And now what this is doing is sort of streamlining the process, making it much more user-friendly, less code focused. It was already no code focused, but making it even easier for people like me who have zero tech savvy to create a chatbot. And I did, in fact, create one, and I'll show you what it looks like in a few minutes. It's called the RETBot, and it is focused on a very specific academic task. And it is similar to the writing coach here, but a little bit different. You'll see how and why. You get a tech advisor, right? Someone that has tech knowledge that can just serve as a coach in your pocket, right? Imagine how useful that would be in a conversation about entrepreneurship. Hey, I've got some entrepreneur tech questions. Can I address them to? Nope, nobody's available. Okay, well, I've got this chatbot here. That's an expert because it's been fed the expertise that it can spit back. So what can you feed it? I mean, PDFs, videos, YouTube clips, entire books now. At the Dev Day presentation, they showed that they expanded the memory base of ChatGPT just expansively. And so, before you had to input multi-prompts to produce more complex results. Now it's just all one go, and they have a streamlined integration of upload your PDF here. There was a lot of companies that had started popping up, little companies doing very specific things like, how do you get a PDF uploaded to ChatGPT? And now that they integrated that directly, that sort of kills off some of those little companies that emerge with new solutions. And in a conversation about entrepreneurship, it's really good. It's really interesting to see these things starting already to mirror what happened in the 90s with the internet. And just the many companies that emerged, the sudden boom of everybody had a website, right? But not all those websites were meant to last, right? I mean, ChatGPT can still do what it can do. Perhaps the chatbots will be a way to access specific, abilities without having to pay the monthly subscription. There are a number of ways to apply, but the point is, anybody here who is within a discipline or has an expertise that they would like to automate, essentially, can create a ChatGPT, and it becomes your specialized bot. And beyond that, there is an incentive from the company to do so. Because if you create something that does facilitate a lot of usage of the base GPT model that it's built on top of, then the rewards come back to the creator. And that's, we talked briefly in one of the previous presentations about, imagine the power of creating a district-wide chatbot, right? A tutoring bot, a coach, a supplemental counselor, someone who they could turn to on a constant basis, again, in their pockets. But now in an educational setting, right, a college setting where you've got students, right, actively using these platforms, they will actively be using these platforms if we show them how to do so properly. And I mean, really do two things at once, right? Avoid plagiarism because you defined very specifically how you'll use AI, and so you'll allow for certain things. And there will be less penalizing or need for, hey, are you cheating? Because I mean that doesn't seem to work. The AI is limited, as we've seen, in capturing or letting you know it's been plagiarized. And I maintain still that clarity in usage is superior to policing usage. Certainly, it has been for me. Um, so encourage positive usage and critical usage, but that then takes us to the place of maybe project-based learning and maybe AI-powered project-based learning, because there is a difference and it does add something. So quickly glance to the left there and you'll see the instructions. Super simple to create a bot. You don't actually have to do much other than describe what you want it to do, adjust a few parameters, and you're good to go. It asks you for a name, right? It creates a little graphic badge for you because now ChatGPT has a DALL-E integration. So it's a very interesting new tool, and we'll talk about that in just a few moments. Another cool thing coming through that does sort of relate back to AI empowering industry or transforming industry is this idea of AI music experiments. And I'm going to go ahead and play this because I think it's interesting for you to just see what exactly is happening with the AI technology and what industries does it begin to disrupt. Now, music, I guess I never imagined that this is what would be happening, but this is an AI tool that essentially takes your a whistle, a hum, anything that you've just kind of uttered, and it turns it into an instrumental. So very interesting stuff. So if it looks, I'm looking to the left, just my screen is up here. I won't play the rest. I hope you were able to hear that. Let me know if you were. Um, the idea that you could do that is amazing. I mean, think about content creation and the idea of being creative with these tools. I mean, my God, how many songs don't I hum on a constant basis that I could now produce into something that I could use in some capacity, monetize my time and my creativity in the background? That's amazing. That's wow. This is on the positive side of what you can do. And there's more than this, but this is just kind of a fun little, hey, that's interesting new usage. I didn't think AI would be doing something like that. But the creativity possible is sort of what I want to explore here as well. And then I didn't want to end on only positive news, also bad news and good news, right? This is a full discussion of AI plagiarism, of the good and bad. One of the things that came out of this article from Wired was that the people who are essentially developing the AI base knowledge are workers predominantly based in East Africa, Venezuela, Pakistan, India, and the Philippines. workers in refugee camp, etc. So where this data is coming from becomes a point of conversation, the same way that algorithms became a point of conversation when we realized that they, uh, again, Sophia Noble's algorithms of oppression and sort of pointing out what they were limited in seeing and how we had to treat data sets, all of those critical conversations that emerged, they're emerging here with this AI conversation as well, and they need to be had. I don't actually have much of a discussion point as far as what we do with this information, but I like to share it so that people know that it's not a fully positive discussion. It is very critical. You also have to consider emissions of chat GPT usage, right? So they're working on making it less energy intensive. Then we get into conversations about the rapid growth of AI. And in any case, all of that does have to do with entrepreneurship as well, because it has to do with energy efficiency. It has to do with critical conversations about the environment, which does relate right back to maybe a green technology, right? Right, green movements or blue ocean strategies versus kind of red ocean, right? Dog eat dog competition. But some of these things are essential to think about then, and the number of AI companies that are building is uh, there's so many, but because of the tools becoming available, our students at the local level, anyone with an entrepreneurial desire can sort of jump in now and start to develop these things that they could not develop on their own before, things that took entire teams. And many of these solutions are free. Obviously, some of them are paid, and we're looking at a little bit of both here to determine what are the best tools. But even some of these tools that we're talking about here, again, may vanish fairly soon as the space just evolves rapidly. But the base understanding remains the same, which is why if you did not attend the first few presentations, I mean, we will be doing more down the road, but please check out the first AI demystified presentation where we broke down sort of what it is and how it works and what it's doing. And there's others around, and I'll keep presenting at the district level so that we can have this conversation ongoing. And there's others who are doing it as well. There's an entire work group locally that's doing some online stuff. So this conversation, I'm glad, is finally out there. The other point of interest here was this video that came out, again, noting the limitations of AI and the biases that are possible. It was great that there was a correction here, but long story short, pictures of the province of this area of France in banlieue were, whoa, there, didn't mean to do that. Oh, I guess it's taking me to the, apologies. Um, the conversation here in banlieue were outputs of the images that came out when you would write, hey, give me a picture of, let's say, a wedding. And they would give you a wedding. And then you said, give me a wedding here in this area. And it would come out with a very negative image, a very charged image of class instability, etc. And so then they gave a bunch of different samples, like all these different scenarios that came out positively and then negatively when you would add the qualifier in banlieue. And so what they did with the solution was, again, was to feed the bot more data. So they corrected it by sending hundreds upon hundreds of postcards noting the very different angles on banlieue. What is this place really? It's much more complex than these AI images were making it out to be. Its data set was so limited that anybody who asks about the beauty of this place would never see it because it only is seeing the bad. So let's show it the good became the mission. And so here you have a collective unifying force of, hey, let's get this corrected. And they did expand on it. And point being is now Midjourney AI in itself can see much more than it could before. Again, a case for rallying together to correct something essential that needs to be corrected. It's the entrepreneurial spirit that brings collective action. I think it's interesting that AI is taking us there again. It doesn't have to be about conversations about plagiarism and unethical usage, but rather, okay, these much bigger issues, these bigger conversations about representation and identity and digitization of information and ownership of that information, and a lot of those conversations that are being had as well. So I leave the clip there. You can definitely check it out later. And that sort of gets us to the where we are in AI conversation, sprinkled with a little bit of entrepreneurship there. Moving on then to the next point. The changing landscape of education is what we're here to discuss. traditional versus 21st century learning, sort of chiming right back up to that quote that we started with, the idea that the world is changing and has changed drastically. Technology and AI are transforming what we're doing, how we do it, how efficiently, in what capacity, to what degree. Um, we've had conversations about plagiarism, surely. Again, here we're relying more on the conversation about creativity and fair usage and ethical usage and usage that is transparent, to build on something or to transform something, really to reshape what is there now, which is what you see all these companies starting to do that are popping up and doing a lot of AI tech solutions. So, what are the entrepreneurial skills that we're looking to develop in this sort of entrepreneurial thinking? I mean, you'll find they are very familiar to things that we talk about in the classroom, right? Creativity, problem solving, critical thinking, adaptability, resilience, and innovation, each worthy of their own time and discussion, but just we can proceed because I think you understand that project-based learning is something that taps into these. If you have a passion for something and you research it actively and you are interested, you just have a different focus, a different attention span for it. If you can nurture that and tap into that, that's what empowers students in the classroom for sure. It's what can create amazing ideas that spark innovation. It's just a mode of thinking, a way, a framework that you have to put the students into. So again, pointing to the rec center, focusing for 14 weeks out of 16 on the question and the problem and the audience. It took us right back to a rhetorical focus, which is where all of this stems from for me. See, AI for me is really just a return to a conversation about rhetoric, because now we're using language with these machines. But then even conversations about how these machines will treat us and how we'll engage with them is, well, that's rhetoric, right? So some of us are very polite to the machines for funny purposes, right? Like when they take over, they'll remember we were benevolent. And some of us are more rude to the AI. There's been reports and studies done on people speaking to Siri and speaking to Alexa and asking for things impolitely. But it takes us back to a conversation on communication and rhetoric and composition and artistry. And in that sense, it can be a powerful tool. But it does rely on a good, solid AI policy, perhaps one that you work out with your students, so that it's not an issue in the classroom, right? They know how to use it. They've agreed to how it will be used. They understand what you deem, essential usage and what you don't. They understand what the wider conversation is on plagiarism I think that's important, and we do have to take that into account because even in the business world, you have copyright and you have other issues like that do we have to rely on proper definition and terminology. And in any case, these are the skills that it makes possible. AI tools just empower that, or they can if used properly. And AI's role in education is simply transformative. I've already shown many tools that are being used. This presentation in itself was made using a Gamma.app, which is an AI-powered presentation maker. The content obviously is adjusted. I go through and I edit afterwards, but it forms the skeleton, and most of the presentation itself is done through Gamma. That's how I've done all the presentations for this entire series. Trying to use those very tools that I'm talking about to see their limitations. And it's a great tool. It is a paid tool eventually, so it's free for a little while, and then they have a paid option. And that's sort of the world that we're going to be in, right? Students paying for these features or using them to build other things, right? Maybe monetizing their time to be able to afford these features and not have to pay for them out of pocket, or getting them sponsored, or we can talk about schools sponsoring students. There's a lot to discuss here. But the point is that using it as a tool to empower students and to empower their critical thinking and their innovation, that's possible, certainly possible. So project-based learning, just for those that don't have a background in it, it's an instructional methodology that encourages students to learn and apply knowledge and skills through an engaging experience. I've used this most of my academic career, just because I was always a big passionate person for games and comics and pop culture. And I would tie it back to things like Comic-Con and civic engagement and civic duty and businesses popping up within the comics industry and etc. These very real conversations, because to talk rhetoric, for me, you really should do it not in a vacuum, but in very real scenarios. And business offer some great scenarios for how you should communicate, or you have use cases for discussion or dialogue, or I've always loved those scenarios. I like to say a lot of my training was working through a lot of those jobs that I did before, I became an educator, and in managerial roles, or in as a teller at a bank, so introductory roles, management roles, higher management roles. It's an interesting conversation to be a part of now, seeing the transformation of the landscape and the need for new education at the college. So we'll talk a little bit about future proofing yourself for these new emerging industries. How to become, future proof is the new term, right, in the interest of talking rhetoric. So new terms. Goals of PBL then include critical thinking, obviously desirable, problem solving skills, collaboration, enhanced student engagement is key. Again, why turn to these things that I thought were engaging as a young individual? Because I I did grow up seeing the philosophical or the critical in these things that were not supposed to be. So I very naturally applied it to the things that students are passionate about. And that became sort of my MO before AI came along, to just add a little bit of spice to the conversation. But really it's nothing more than that. So this is really a presentation on, project-based learning, and flipping the classroom, and these things that put the student as the center of their own agency and education, right? But does so by helping them see where their education does matter. Hey, what goals do you have? Hey, you want to become this? Here's how that would work, and here's real conversations you would engage. You would engage within that setting, and here's possible scenarios that you may encounter, and you almost prep them for those situations. And imagine you couldn't be there, but your chatbot could be. Right? And we'll talk about that again in a minute. So that's where AI comes in, right? Project-based learning plus AI, these new little powers, these new abilities for the educator and for the entrepreneur and the student who's learning all of this. AI tools can help students and innovators to learn more effectively. They can help you to work more efficiently. They can help you to prepare for real world career challenges and opportunities. They can. But you have to go out there and experiment, which is the name of the game here, right? Go out and learn these tools, learn this literacy, is what we've been saying since the very first presentation. Um, oh, what are some ways to empower entrepreneurship with AI? You have AI-driven entrepreneurship education, specifically like focused on how do we do it in the classroom, data analysis and opportunity identification, right? So AI can just parse data sets, parse web pages, parse PDFs, parse whatever you need, and pull out whatever data you need. So imagine that your data is now more efficient, right? Predictive analysis and market trends, like, okay, so these are some of the things that AI can do, and market trends are all entirely related to business and entrepreneurship, and catching the right wave at the right time. And again, props to every single one of you who is taking this conversation seriously enough to attend these PD sessions, and not just mine, but the many going on out there. I attend many as well. I just took a little mini course from Coursera, right? Just trying to see where the conversation is going, what new things are developing, getting certificates where they are available, because again, it's just this new thing that's fresh and interesting and new, and it's being made easy for those of us that are not coders. That's where I'm very happy about that part. Leveraging AI for innovation, right? Encouraging experimentation is essential. This takes me back again to a lot of what I do in my classroom, and the idea of taking chances and making mistakes. And hey, I used to assign an activity. I didn't assign it this semester because we were talking more directly about AI, but it was to create a company, but it's to do so with a sort of silly company, right? So um, get together in small groups. Somebody toss out an adjective, somebody toss out a noun. Great, that's your company now, right? And then they have to create it and think about what it would do. And they're funny names that lead to creative thinking. And then what could this possibly become? And how would we communicate that thing? And these base questions of stasis that ends up being the best domain for AI. It can really shine there, and giving views, count what has been said about this topic. Here it is. And hallucinations are now sort of accounted for when you think about these smaller models that won't be giving you entire knowledge bases, but just small data sets that don't ask this GPT anything about this other thing. It's not going to know. It's only designed for this. And so it won't hallucinate because it'll have consistency of information. It will be limited to what you feed it. But again, that's sort of the point here. Integrating AI into design thinking, right? Again, the ironic part about it is that we could open up a chat web page right now and type, if you did not know, how should I integrate AI into design thinking, right? And it will give you an entire roadmap. Like that's what it's designed to do. So when you're feeling stuck even with an idea, go to the bot. It is sort of the default thing that we're learning to do here. But imagine now that the bot is an expert because it has been trained on those things that you don't have time to go and look for the entire book, right? Just imagine now who's going to feed one of these chatbots the entirety of Shakespeare's works to create the Shakespeare AI bot. And hey, guess what? I don't have to go look for pages or sections anymore, ever. It's just going to know where every line is, who said what to who, where, in what meter, in what. There's so many things it can pull out, right? So AI designing it into the thinking possible, the creative thinking conversation, right? The moment of stasis where you get stuck and you have to critically think about directions to take. Looking at case studies, right? So you want to talk about real world business examples, and we could pull some, right? I mean, there's so many different companies that are building with AI right now, and really the big ones are OpenAI and the makers of ChatGPT, and now Microsoft. And I mean, these companies that have been around for a long time are now becoming the dominant players in the AI conversation, but there are little players who will be consumed by the big players, and some who will survive into to become big fish. But that is the conversation of entrepreneurship as well. And it's a great a great sort of visual roadmap for anybody who's interested in this conversation. You see the rise and fall of these little solutions that emerge. Some of the ones that I talked about again at the beginning are no longer relevant simply because of updates to ChatGPT's base model. Preparing for the AI-driven business world is really what we're here to talk about in the entrepreneurship conversation. AI technology is here, is the future, is not going anywhere. It's getting easier to use. It's getting better and better and better in scary ways sometimes. But we adapt and we go forward, learning the limitations and really playing in that field of discovery. So best practices then for incorporating AI into your project-based learning, which should be incorporated into every classroom simply because it's a great way of tapping into student interests. You should certainly be seeking to tap into those interests, whether you're talking to students who are in your classroom or even young entrepreneurs who are developing their creative thought and looking for ways to apply that creativity. They might have an interesting idea that they don't know could become an interesting solution, widely applicable. And what AI has done is facilitate the possibility of that. Maybe before it would have taken an entire team to do what AI can empower one person to do now is sort of where we are. So understanding and selecting the right tools becomes essential, right? You want to make sure that you research tools, that you look at all the ones that are out there. And this is where networks of users become very important because I only talk about the best tools, the ones that I think really everyone should be using, whether because they're free or because they are ethical or provide some essential solution, easy integration, whatever it might be. So what's the tool for you, right? What will you be using it for? Align the tools with your learning objectives. What is it that you're seeking for students to do? And here we ultimately chime back into that conversation on plagiarism, right? If in my composition class I allow my students to use Gamma app to create all their presentations, but then I force them to revise the base skeleton of what they're given, would that be plagiarism? Would that be cheating? Like, well, the answer is no, because I allowed for them to do it. They were still responsible for the editing that came post the creation of this first presentation, right? So here we kind of go back to the idea of, okay, if my learning objective is the following, then they could use AI for this other thing, and they wouldn't be cheating. And they'd be learning that AI is a modern tool that efficiently facilitates things, that makes you able to do things that would have taken you more time. Sort of, okay, well, is that worth anything in the business world, in the creative landscape? How many of your tasks that you have now as a business owner, business entrepreneur, couldn't you automate? Right? And there are solutions that provide entire business solutions. But here I'm mostly, I guess, in my mind, aligning myself with the young entrepreneur, individual entrepreneur who's on their own and trying to make it, trying to build a team. Well, AI could be your team, or certainly should be on your team, is becoming the rule. It's just so powerful. And even the free versions that allow you to use the base models, right? So GPT is upgrading to 4 fairly soon for the base model. And so now these tools become accessible to those who did not have them before. So purposeful integration is important, right? Don't just throw AI tools in but you got to practice with them. You have to use them. You have to determine, is this the way that I want to use them, and etc. And relevance to curriculum. So here I point back to a tool that I did mention before. It's still an efficient tool. It's a futuretools.io. And what you'll find here is really tools for everything. And in the very first category is AI detection, right? So for those of you that are curious, wait a minute, can I track for AI detection? Certainly you can. There are at least 100 hits on AI detection. So all of these will do some form of that. Now, tools are emerging, right? But if you imagine that there are some that will detect and some will detect the detectors or hide from the detectors, right? So, but look at all the things that you can do using this website or using the AI to empower yourself, right? Just a brief skim before was suited, but now we can go through. And even, if you'll humor me, those of you who are here and engaged, in the chat, if you'll offer some things that you imagine from an entrepreneurial sense could be disrupted by AI when you see these categories, right? AI detection, surely in academia, let's move past it. But what about image scanning? Image scanning, who does that disrupt? What does that do for the market, right? PDFs and all that. Image scanning, right? Okay. Productivity? Oh, you mean like all of those schedulers that are now AI powered? Okay, right. What about text to speech? How about all those memos you have to write, all those reviews, reports, summaries, right? What if you could just speak them and they were produced by an AI bot? Because before we had the base technology, which is not great. It's improving is the point. So now you have a seamless transition from the spoken to the written and to the made, right? To the production that comes afterward as well. Games. You can create games or you can play games, create educational games, create whatever type of games you want. Inspiration, create a chatbot that pulls out inspirational quotes. Prompt guides, text to video. Avatar? Yep, an avatar like the one that I showed last time in the online AI world of spatial IO. Josh and I had our avatars on. Generative art, which we've talked about before. Marketing directly. Let's look at marketing for a second because it does have everything to do with business. Here are, well, it's only showing 100, but there are far more. If you look at the very bottom, there's a list of, there's just so many. All these companies are doing some form of marketing, facilitating some form of marketing. A tool for YouTube workflows, generate scripts, optimize content. Every content creator is empowered. Some of us that don't make content for YouTube because we're like, oh, that'd be a lot of work. It's like, well, here's your tool to make it, facilitate it, and then automate it. Well, that's pretty useful, certainly, right? A platform for competitive analysis, a platform to create, test, and deploy AI applications, a productivity app focus, streamline tasks, improve work efficiency. Maybe you've seen like Mondays.com has had something for a minute that I didn't know what it was, and then oh, it's AI powered. That's what it was, right? So research, translation, video editing. Wow, self improvement, motion capture, right? Generative code, chat. Chat was one that certainly uh, just suddenly boomed with this new Dev Day announcement. Copywriting, generative video, music, like we talked about at the beginning, social media, again, important for marketing, voice modulation, which would adjust my voice to sound like someone else, finance, podcasting. I mean, podcasting, I suppose, is now part of marketing, but how many people are not taught to market themselves in new markets, right? To expand their reach. And hey, again, some of these tools are not easy to master. So, hey, here is a product that will help you, right? And there's the free ones too, right? It's not that I'm suggesting that people should be paying for any of this, but exploring the free options, surely, right? So a lot of these are productivity based, marketing based for fun, right? You want to make some apparel, make a t-shirt business with using AI, go for it, right? Here you go. A tool to create customized t-shirts for order and printing, right? So how many of these different businesses could you create, right? This one here, create, is one that I'll separately show you specifically for what it can do because it's quite amazing. I think you'll agree with me once we get to that part. So, okay. So let's move on here from futuretools.io, but it is there available for you to check out. Have fun exploring. Definitely hit the for fun tab there and try some of these tools out. I think again, it's a good way of starting to understand what the limitations are and what you can do and how these tools will help you, and which is the goal in an entrepreneur mindset. How do I facilitate my time? How do I make myself more efficient? How do I be more creative? How do I be more communicative, right? Reach out and facilitate discussion more easily. Um, you want to foster an understanding of AI among educators and students. This is essential. Um, I missed one image. I was going to add a third one here of two people handshaking like this, right? So there's a facilitated conversation between teachers and students, and here it's mostly teachers and educators and professionals who are here at this presentation. All of the audiences have varied. I have yet to do a student-focused presentation, but those are coming. It's more about this conversation, this understanding that, hey, we know, right? When you enter the classroom, when you enter the workplace, two very different conversations happen in these two very different settings, and hence we go back to the rhetoric, right? In the classroom, students are being told you can't use that stuff. No, 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 no. AI is plagiarism. AI is bad. No usage. And in the business world, people like my friend who works for a major media company are being given access to things like Jasper AI, which is a social media, content creation, email bot. So this is a difference is starting to form between those who are using AI and those who are not. And we've talked about that briefly as a literacy gap before. I'm much more convinced now that with the evolution of these tools and the type of thinking that they allow for, we've always been having the same conversation, but now we have to explore the way that these tools improve what we've done rather than to police their usage as much. Um, I at least hope to be building that case and to showcase that as the presentations ensue, right? Because what's possible with AI is incredible. Educator training is important, so here we are doing some educator training. Student orientation becomes important too. So we'll have to facilitate conversations as you become the expert in your area, make yourself the expert in your area, pass it on. And that in itself becomes this entrepreneurial energy, right? I'm going to take it now to others who can learn this and really empower themselves. It's a new type of entrepreneur energy, a collectivism powered by this sort of fear and misunderstanding that's become a deeper understanding from those of us that are interested. Again, the tools are powerful. So encourage what they're supposed to be, right? Critical thinking and problem solving tools, meaning they should not solve the whole thing for you, right? A hammer does not pick itself up and hit a nail, right? Like it has to be wielded, right? So wield it effectively, right? Like wield the hammer properly? How do you use the tool, but not rely entirely on it, right? And so problem solving skills become essential, and that's absolutely essential for an entrepreneurial mindset when you're looking for solutions and trends and facilitating things that do not exist or improving what is there. On that note, the other thing that is empowered very much by this entrepreneurial mindset is collaboration and community, which is huge in academia in itself, is huge in certain companies that take on that ethos, but not necessarily all companies. And so the idea that you could have more collaboration, more communication, more transparent communication, all of these things facilitated with new technologies, it just changes the work landscape a little bit and what we can do as entrepreneurial minded individuals. So collaborative tools are emerging, and sharing insights becomes important. Right. Now, let's show you a few of these tools now in this section to really showcase what is possible. I added Gamma here because, like I said, I've been doing these presentations using Gamma. As you can read there, it's powered by AI. You can create beautiful content. There is, like I said, a free option, so give it a go. But now I wanted to show you some more creative possibilities that have emerged recently and have, I suppose, more of a little overview of what would be possible based on these tools. But if you look at the first one with me, it's a tool that is interesting because it takes those of us that are not highly artistic and it suddenly allows us to make things that are highly artistic. Right. So on the left hand side, you have what is the sketch of the individual that on the right hand side has been turned into a much more refined painting, right? Much more what someone would call an artwork. The one here on the left might be like a sketch, a doodle, but the one on the right, wow, that's a painting. That's an artwork. So imagine what that does as far as your marketing or your branding or what you're doing with your space, right? What you're able to publish, right? All of those things are now altered by these new tools. So that's one. Let me show you the other one. Similar tool, just a very different, another character basically, and a little bit different application. You'll see that these these two symbols, these two become something much more complex on the right. And look at what happens as he actively alters it. Right. And so it refines the position based on what he is doing with the left-hand side there. And it adjusts the look. And obviously the renders are much more realistic. So you can put characters and poses that you want them to be in, right? Very easily. So now imagine how that again forces you to adapt as a graphic designer or as a marketer. What are you now forced to learn to use? But how does it empower you, right? And how about those that are good with AI? Well, all of a sudden you can enter a conversation as a marketer that you couldn't enter before, but AI has empowered you to do so. Like, okay, right? So these are some tools out there. There is also, the idea of using AI to prepare for this AI-driven future. There is this individual here who, I mean, really just reading this just again speaks of the entrepreneurial energy that's possible here. And so I share this more as I'm scrolling through Twitter. This is a friend of mine who posted this. I did not share their identity, but I did share their post and obviously some of their tags. So you may find what they are related to or associated to. But just read what he's saying and imagine that this is someone who has that entrepreneurial spark that we're trying to inspire in all of these students and all of these thinkers who want to develop it, right? So, creating AI images today is easy. With a dozen tools, you can just copy and paste into. That said, those artists that choose to push the boundaries within painting, 3D to vid creations, or complex prompts, driven animation is AI art at a whole new level. So this is what I was meaning about the development is so fast. It just evolves. What you can create. I am the CTO of a new and exciting era of print publication, a physical magazine that explores multi-realities, AR-activated pages, GPS-triggered rewards, and digital asset utility. of the latest artists, designers, and Web3 companies changing the space today. If you wish to dive in, yeah, right. This is I showcase this for the language of entrepreneurship that it oozes out, right? And it's very collective focused, and these new features coming, and it's new tech powered, and in any case, the new technologies bringing new excitement to academic conversations. That's one example there. And then here I also wanted to show you the uh, the very different applications possible with AI to, again, unlock new possibilities, right? What then could you do with AI if you can do all of this? And how does it transform your business? So let's look at this one really quickly. Here you have an individual who is making an entire cityscape. I know it's a little blurry there, but using 3D graphics, they're making an entire cityscape, right? A circle, a square, a rectangle become other things, right? This rectangle becomes a door, becomes a full painting, right? That's one tool there. Let's see if I can zoom back. Yep. Okay. Here's another one where you have this person making this. Have to, well, you can see sort of there how it's turning that little house on the left-hand margin into a much more beautiful landscape. Over here, you have another individual who is drawing a landscape over on the left, turning it into something much more interesting. This person over here, because you can click these videos later on your own if you'd like to go through them individually. This one's really interesting. The other ones are awesome as well. This one's a little bit different. This one is the speaker has captured himself on camera and added some code. So in this example, you have a little bit more of an individual who can speak many languages. Coding is one of these languages. And so he's a little more superpowered because he can make AI do even more cool stuff than those of us with no code solutions, like myself. I'm sort of reliant on what ChatGPT is making, but someone who has a coding background could certainly do way more. So what he does is he captures himself there on the camera and he codes a narrator to basically take in the image, right? So it captures an image and it renders it to the bot. And so it's describing the image in real time. And so he turns it into sort of like a National Geographic, like following the human around, right? So if I was the human, then it would be explaining how the human is wearing these glasses and he seems to have facial hair on his face. And, he's thinking about his existence in a certain way. And you really narrate your experience as you go. So as you move and you do certain things, you're automating this bot to speak and narrate this new material that it's creating from just images. So it's just interesting technology. Here is another example of that. Let me just show you. You can make this right here with Word, a video, an animated video. You can make it with words because now you can tell it, give me this frame to that frame to that frame, and sort of evolve it over time. And so you can animate things, and animation starts to take on a new appearance. And maybe now AI innovation in film becomes a new possibility. And that's really where the conversation is going, with people looking at new ways to find stable renderings of video, because obviously the AI feature is the diffusion that kind of melts things, but it always looks a little blurry or a little, until it doesn't. Um, I suppose the final thing that I'll introduce you to here is my chatbot. So I did say that these are new tools that are emerging. I encourage you to check it out. So those of you that go to my presentation, if you'll click on my Retbot, I said it was a little different than that writing tutor because this primary purpose of this chatbot is to help you become a master of rhetoric. So I've mostly trained it on rhetorical, the critical tradition of rhetoric, the critical conversation, some specific texts that I think are essential, filtered out certain knowledge, told it to speak and respond a certain way, very philosophical and rhetorical in its interactions, but always guiding students to more critical questions. So it does also have vast expertise on composition. So it does give feedback to anyone who has ideas, needs ideas, wants to brainstorm, wants to explore bits of their writing, wants to organize their writing, etc. So it's a rep bot, right? So you really could use it as a marketing bot as well. It can certainly do that if you believe, as I believe, that really modern marketing is just classic rhetoric, right? But applied differently or applied to new scenarios, new tools, etc. But you can then go make one of your own. Once you've tried it out, you do have to have the paid subscription to ChatGPT. But again, the possibilities that emerge with these new chatbots is interesting. So check it out. Give me some feedback. I can certainly improve upon it if it does something that you feel is subpar. And this is where we're going with this conversation now as well. It's sort of exciting, right? This new possibility, this new enterprise. How shall we use these chatbots? Well, listen, how could you improve your business with a chatbot might be the better question to ask. And then it makes a lot of sense. A lot of this information that passively sits on the internet, why not automate it behind a chatbot, right? We all loved Clippy back in the early 90s when the internet first emerged, and you had, Clippy was great, but now you have an AI powered Clippy. Now you have RentBot, right? Now you have very specific tools, and other colleagues are making other bots. That's exactly how it should be, and eventually we'll have maybe a streamlined bot that works for every one of us in a small category. Maybe it's the I don't know, call it the grammar bot. My RetBot has grammar knowledge certainly, but maybe this one focuses on all grammar. But in any case, that's basically the gist of the presentation. Harnessing the power of AI for creativity and entrepreneurship and education. AI has enormous potential. It really does. There's so many exciting tools, but there's also a lot of things to consider in the large conversation. And I certainly wanted to keep here the focus on keeping the conversation going. So I'll remind you that if you have not already, there is an ongoing call for papers for the series Writing in the Age of AI. I will be putting together for Inside English, but it is not an English only thing. It's interdisciplinary. So if you are writing on AI, if you're experimenting in some way and want to have something published, we're putting that together in 2024. So open call for papers. And for those of you that have attended any of the series here, again, I thank you. The first one sort of was a focus on demystifying the entire conversation. The second was a little bit more focused on advanced techniques with prompts. The third one was really focused on grading and being more efficient with your time, which was sort of not there at the time. It has improved slightly, so I will have to revisit that one for the next round of presentations for sure. Art from Words was the one with Josh Ali where we talked about art. I think maybe for next time we'll do 2 art ones because I feel like squeezing it all into one wasn't quite enough. I'd like to do more conversations because the art scene is transforming drastically. And then finally, AI innovation. I hope that you found this informative and helpful in some way. I hope that I've sparked some curiosity and creativity. And if you have any questions, please reach out. My information is here at the bottom. I am Rodrigo Gomez. You can visit my web spaces. I have the one here at the Silververse. I am making one at Spatial.io because I'll be migrating my stuff over to that site. But that is all then. So I guess I'll open it up for questions or a possible Q&A, any sort of discussion that anyone wants to have. What do you think, Laura?
Absolutely. That was wonderful. Thank you so much, Rodrigo. And yeah, if anyone has questions, please feel free.
Oh no, there was no sound to the music video I just saw in the chat. I apologize. I don't remember which the music video was, but yeah, if there's any questions, I would love to address them. If there's any concerns about AI at all, I know everyone's prepping for the holiday break, so thank you for being here. And thank you for spending some time just thinking about this. It's something that I certainly find very interesting, something that I maintain has a lot of critical concerns and certainly ethical concerns. And that's why I'm glad that you, Laura, set up the initial AI conversation. I forget who it was that presented that very first one that we ended up sort of joining and sort of sparked this whole thing. It's been super fun to engage. So yeah, I'll wait for a few minutes if there are any questions or any sort of follow up, and if not, thank you guys for being here.
And just a heads up, everyone, we definitely plan, as Rodrigo mentioned, to continue these conversations. So we're looking at a couple of different possibilities. One which includes kind of a hands-on space to test some of these tools out. So we'd love your input. If anyone has ideas about specific tools they'd really like to work with, ideas about format, anything like that, please feel free to either pop it in the chat or send us an email. We really want to kind of keep discussing this since it's constantly evolving, and I know for a lot of people we're trying these things out for the first time, so any suggestions are welcomed. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and I don't see anything in the oh, I do see some saying yes, I'd love hands-on demo of the tools. Yeah, that'd be fantastic. I mean, there are a few that I could suggest now. Certainly, if I can type in the chat, actually, let me paste them in the chat. Two of the ones that I would suggest that you check out now, and certainly we can have these workshops once you've explored sort of what they are. One of them is eduaid.com. It is designed for educators. It's helping you lesson plan and design. And maybe the other one would be Magic School, if I remember correctly. Yeah, Magic School AI. This is another one that is doing some pretty interesting things here. Even doing generation of assessment and things that you have to do at a professional level, because here at the end of the day, one of the things that I guess we didn't really talk about too much is that, wherever you're working, if you're a teacher, if you're staff, admin, wherever you are, I'm sure there's some tasks that AI can help you to automate to then give you back some time for maybe some entrepreneurial thinking or critical creative thinking of this sort that many of us don't have time for. That is sort of the use case or the value proposition behind AI. As far as I've seen it, it's like, so it doesn't take much time and I can do a whole lot more. Like, okay, it does take devoting some time at first to learn it, but then, and these tools are great. So, all right, cool. Well, thank you guys for being here then. And I guess we can call it here. Is that all right with you, Laura? Awesome.
Sounds
Cool.
good. A huge thank you to you, Rodrigo. This has been absolutely amazing. We are indebted to you. You have really, done such an outstanding job highlighting a whole variety of different tools that we can use. So, just a major thank you to you.
Thank you. No, it's been super fun, and I look forward to more. So yeah, if any of you here have specific things you'd love, and including, like we said, that hands-on thing, yeah, let's explore it all. Let's just really grow and help each other grow with all of these tools, and then help our students to do the same. That's sort of where I'm at. So cool, awesome. Thank you guys. And I'm gonna head off.